Enggak lah kan lu pembukaan langsung baca berita pertama. Berarti ntar kalau lu berita pertama kelar baru kedua gitu ya?
Iya.
Iya kan?
Ya, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. This time I wanna speak. I wanna read some information, some news about the Ukraine-Russian tension. British troops unlikely to fight trust. There is a real threat of Russia invading Ukraine. Foreign Secretary Liz Truss has warned about, but it is very unlikely British soldiers would be deployed to fight in any conflict. Instead, she said the UK was sending weapons to Ukraine and strengthening its sanction system, so oligarchs close to the Kremlin had nowhere to hide. She said the UK was also offering extra support to nearby NATO allies. Any invasion would be terrible for Europe, Mr. told the BBC. Russia has placed about 100,000 troops, tanks, artillery, and missiles near Ukraine border, but denies it planned to invade the former Soviet Republic, which bordered both Russia and the EU. But Mr. said it was highly likely that President Vladimir Putin was looking to invade. We're doing all we can through deterrence and diplomacy to urge him to desist, she told BBC one Sunday morning program. Economic sanction punishment put on state, individual or organization by another country, could target Russian financial institution, energy company, and those who are key to the continuation of the Russian regime. Under new legislation, sanction could potentially target any interest that has an impact on the Russian government, she said. The Foreign Office expected to announce together sanctions in Parliament on Monday. Earlier this week, Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky called on the West not to create panic, saying warnings of an imminent invasion were putting Ukraine economy at risk. Russia-Ukraine tension and the another news about Russia is Russian-Ukraine tension the basic. Mr. Truss, who will visit Ukraine and Moscow in the next 2 weeks, said the Ukraine had already trained 20,000 troops in Ukraine, supplied any tank missile and given support to its navy and energy sector. The UK is also considering offering to double the number of its troops deployed in Eastern Europe, with Prime Minister Boris Johnson saying it would send a clear message to the Kremlin. The UK has more than 900 military personnel based in Estonia, more than 100 in Ukraine as part of training mission, while a likely cavalry squadron numbering about 150 is deployed to Poland. Also speaking to Sunday Morning Sophie Reward, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said there will be a high price to pay if Russia decides to use force. The more aggressive they are, the more NATO presence they will get at the border. However, he reiterated that Ukraine was not a member of the military alliance, and as such, there were no plans to deploy NATO combat troops. Russia wants to do West to promise Ukraine will never join NATO, in which member promised to come another said in the event of an armed attack. NATO 30 members include the US, UK, and several former Soviet republics, some of which border Russia. Moscow sees NATO troops in Eastern Europe as a direct threat to its security. Mr. Putin has long argued the US broke a guarantee it made in 1990 that NATO would not expand further east, though interpretations differ over exactly what was promised. Last month, Russia issued a written list of its concerns about NATO expansion and reiterated that Ukraine shall never join the alliance. The US has since rejected that demand, but Secretary of State Antony Blinken said it was offering Moscow a serious diplomatic a serious diplomatic path forward should Russia choose it. If Russia were to invade Ukraine, it would not be the first time. Russia annexed Ukraine's southern Crimea Peninsula in 2014. It also backing rebels who settled with swathes of eastern Donbass region soon. Afterward, and some 14, 14,000 people have died in fighting there. Yeah, that is from me. And Umar will be continue the news.
Uh, is Russia preparing to invade Ukraine and other countries? Are Russian forces get ready for war in Ukraine? US President Joe Biden is currently expecting some kind of military move. Russia wants the West to promise that Ukraine will not join its NATO allies. And although the two sides are negotiating that it's not going to happen. What happened next could jeopardize Europa and their security structure. Why is Russia threatening Ukraine? Russia denies its planning any invasion, but it has seized Ukraine territory before and it has an estimated 1,000 troops deployed near its border. Russia has long resisted Ukraine move towards European institutions and NATO in particular. Ukraine shares borders with both the UA and Russia, but as a former Soviet republic, it had deep social and cultural ties with Russia, and Russian is widely spoken there. When Ukrainians deposed their pro-Russian president in early 2014, Russia annexed Ukraine, Songhai Crimea Peninsula, and breakup separatists who kept the land swept of eastern Ukraine. The rebels have fought the Ukrainian military ever since in a conflict that has expanded more than how big is this? How big is the risk of invasion? Russia says it has no plans to attack Ukraine. An armed force Severely Gerasimov even denounced reports of an impending invasion as well. But tensions are high and President Vladimir Putin has threatened apparent retaliatory military tactical measures. If what he calls the with aggressive approach to continues. NATO's Security General warns the risk of conflict is real and President Biden said his goal is that Russia will move in. They would say if none of Russian plans to both its force near Ukraine on very short notice. The U.S. says Russia has offered no explanation for the troops posted close to Ukraine, and Russian troops and tanks have had to deliver for access. Russia Deputy Foreign Minister compared the current situation to the Cuban Missile Crisis. When the US and Soviet Union came close to NATO conflict, Western intelligence suggests a Russian incursion or innovation could happen sometime in Europe. Uh, where Russian troops are posited, permanently stationed and newly arrival units number unconfirmed. In Belarus, Russia, Ukraine, Luhansk, Donetsk, Crimea, Moldova. What does Russia want from NATO? Russia has spoken of moments of truth in recasting its relationship with NATO. For us, it's absolutely mandatory to ensure Ukraine never ever becomes a member of NATO, said Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov. Moscow accused not continuous of pumping Ukraine with weapons and U.S. striking intention. President Putin has complained Russia has no hair further to retreat to the Baltic will just sit idle by. It demands more eastward expansion and to NATO military activity in Eastern Europe. That would mean combat units being pulled out of Poland and the Baltic republics of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and no missiles deployed in countries such as Poland and Romania. NATO, NATO's expansion since 1997 in Russia, Belarus, Crimea, and Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Slovenia, Croatia, Montenegro, Albania, North Macedonia, Bulgaria. Russia has also proposed a treaty with the U.S. banning nuclear weapons from being declared beyond the national territory. What does Russia want with Ukraine? Russia says crime in arguing it had a historic claim to it. Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union, which collapsed in December, and Mr. Putin said it was the disintegration of historical Russia. According to President Putin, the thinking on Ukraine came in a likely place last year when he called Russian and Ukraine for connection. He labeled Ukraine car riders as running anti-Russian project. Russian annexion crime in Russia has also become a first step that meets peace deal for Eastern Ukraine is far from being fulfilled. There are still no arguments for independently monitored election in the separatist region. Russia denies echoes that it is part of the lingering conflict. Can Russia actually be stopped? President Vladimir Putin has spoken several times to Mr. Biden and high-level talks continue. But Russian officials have warned the Western rejection of their demands are leading to a dead end. The question is how far Russia will go. President Biden has warned that full-scale innovation would be a disaster for Russia. But if it was a minor incursion, has said controversially that the West would end up having to fight about what to do. The White House said any move across the border constitute renewed innovation, but points out Russia has other reasons, include cyber attack and paramilitary tactics. The Pentagon has accused Russia of preparing a so-called false flag operation, with operatives ready to carry out acts of sabotage against Russian-backed rebels to provide a pretext for innovation. Russia has denied it. Russia has also had out passport in rebel areas, so if it does not get what it wants, that it could justify an action of promoting its own citizens. However, if Russian arm is the first not away from its backyard, there is no speaking of its schedule. Another 30 members have don't felt any attempt to tie their hands for the future. We will not allow anyone to cross NATO. Our police said U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman. Ukraine is looking for a clear timeline to join, and NATO said Russia has no veto, no right to interfere in that process. Uh, and non-NATO members Sweden and Finland have also rejected Russia attempt to stop the weaving of their peace with the Allies. We will not let go of our road to maneuver, said Finland Prime Minister. How far will the West go for Ukraine? The U.S. has made clear it has no plans to send combat troops to Ukraine. In itself will be committed to helping the country defend its sovereign territory. The Pentagon has combat-ready troops on alert, which will be deployed to NATO countries in Eastern Europe and South NATO. The main task in the West are money efforts to be sanctions and military aid in the form adherence and reaction. President Biden has taken Russia as leader with measures like no he has ever said. If Ukraine is attacked, so what will they innovate? The ultimate economic hit would be to disconnect Russia's banking system from the international SWIFT payment system that has always been seen very much as a last resort, and there is concern it could be impact the U.S. and European economies. President Biden has also warned that he would consider personal sanctions on Vladimir Putin if Russia invades Ukraine. Another key there is to prevent the opening of Russia Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline in Germany. An approval for that is currently being decided by German energy regulator. Is the West unit in its response? The U.S. President has said there is total unity with European leaders of Ukraine, but there are divisions between America and Europe. European leaders are admit that Russia cannot just decide on the future with the us. France has even proposed the Europeans work together with NATO and then connect their own dialogue with Russia. Uh, it's not just the US and Russia. If you were to talk about security in Europeans have to be at the table, and the agenda is just the is Russia has put on the table. Okay, Ms. Abita to Bagas.
Okay, I will continue my news is like now the Ukraine conflict and peace plan is finally bring peace. After 5.5 years of conflict in eastern Ukraine, a Paris summit has resulted in some process toward a peace settlement. Ukrainian forces and Russian-backed separatists have pulled back from three frontline towns. There is no momentum toward a de-escalation after landmark talks between Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin, but there is still a long way to go. More than 13,000 people have died in the conflict between Ukraine military and Russian-backed rebels. Mr. Putin and Mr. Zelensky agree that by the end of this year, an existing ceasefire frequently violated will be fully implemented and all remaining prisoners will be exchanged. The Paris Summit on the 9 December, mediation by France and Germany, was the first between Mr. Zelensky and Mr. Putin, but the body language remained chilly and there was no final handshake. Mr. Zelensky, former comic actor, was elected president and apprehended peace in the East as his main goal. Before the summit could take place, Mr. Zelensky had to accept a 2019 deal, offering special status to the separatist-held part of Ukraine, Donbas region, and a troop detachment at three places on the front line. The pullback was achieved in Statisia Luhanska, Zoloto, and Kretiska. The Steinmeier formula aimed to break the impasse over peace agreement reached at the height of the fighting. It details free and fair election in the East under Ukrainian law, verification by the OSCE International Security Organization, and then self-governing status in return. In Paris, both sides pledged to work toward holding those local elections, but there is no agreement yet on the election timing and technicality. They plan to hold another summit in 4 months' time. They also plan to pull troops back from three more frontline areas by March 2020. Mr. Zelensky's strong pressure in Kiev to avoid any capitulation to Russia, seen as an aggressor for its intervention in the east. Crimea, the Ukrainian peninsula annexed by Russia in March 2014, is not on the table and less talk. The Russian-backed insurgency against Kiev spread to Donbas in April 2014. A key thinking point is the issue of Ukraine regaining control of the 14 kilometers to 249-mile border between the eastern region of Donetsk and Luhansk and Russia. Mr. Putin insisted that the border question could only be addressed after election in the separatist held area. In Paris, he said the peace process is developing in the right direction, and Mr. Zelensky was likewise cautious. Let's say for now it's a draw, he said. It was a shooting range. Ukraine denies the killer way of Ukraine. According to Western intelligence, Russia has sent regular troops and heavy weapons to help the Donbas separatists. Moscow denies that but admits that Russian forces are fighting there. The conflict has displaced more than 1,000 million people, and that complicates plans to hold elections in rebel-hard area. French President Emmanuel Macron said the Russian and Ukrainian leaders would hold summit talks again in a 4 month time. By that time, according to the Parisian statement, Ukraine and separatist forces will have pulled back from the three more frontline areas. Another 77 Ukrainian prisoners are set to be released by the end of 2019 in exchange for 88 prisoners held by the rebels. Although Mr. Zelensky achieved success at home with a long-awaited prisoner swap with Russia in September, his innocent broad property has declared. He described that swap as a victory that emerged from personal contact with Mr. Putin. He was elected in April with a landslide against President Petro Poroshenko. Millions of Ukrainians wanted to get rid of what they saw as a corrupt politician, but they also put their faith in Mr. Zelensky to re-energize the deadlocked peace talks. On a visit to Zolote, Mr. Zelensky told war veteran Ukraine wanted a withdrawal and something had to be done to end the war. But in his push to secure a summit, some of his popularity drained away. Russia and Ukraine have long argued over terms for the transit Russian gas via Ukraine, but now there is a new willingness to reach a deal on that. Before the summit, work began to restore the distribution at Stanitsia Luhanska, a key crossing used every day by thousands of people on both sides. Significantly, on 1 October, Ukraine, Russia, and the separatists agree on special status for separatist hold part of the Donetsk and Luhansk region. The separatists have declared independence, but their so-called republics are not recognized. The signing in October was Moscow's key precondition for the Paris summit of the leaders of Ukraine, Russia, France, and Germany, known as the Normandy format. Moscow and Kiev have interpreted the so-called statement formula differently, but Russian media have described a plan that brings temporary self-governing status for rebel-held area at 9 o'clock local time on the day elections are held. From many special status after the Austrian International Security Organization verified the elections were free and fair and complied with Ukrainian law. Russia is also keen to secure an amnesty for the rebels. Mr. Putin says both sides must stick to the terms of the 2015 Minsk ceasefire deal. However, the framework for peace was soon violated and Ukraine wants to recover full control over its border before Donbas election, not after as stated in the Minsk deal. There is no alternative to the Minsk agreement and everything needs to be done to put them into action, Mr. Putin said in Paris. Ukrainian nationalists suspect Mr. Zelensky of negotiating a surrender to Russia and are unconvinced by his assurance. Mr. Zelensky has set out a series of objectives and red lines: the release of all Ukrainian prisoners, and a full and genuine ceasefire, and withdrawal of all armed groups and weapons before any election can be held in the East. participation by candidates from Ukrainian political party in election and not just pro-Russian parties, the right of all those who have fled the conflict to return to vote, restoration of Ukraine control over the stretch of border with Russia, currently controlled by rebels. Despite his guarantee protect have been held across Ukraine, with Mr. Zelensky opponent arguing implementation of the deal could result in Russian occupation of the Donbas being legitimate. The BBC Jonah Fisher in Kiev said it's hard to see how the proposed election will be fairly contested, even if held under Ukrainian law. Most people with strongly pro-Ukrainian views believe the rebel held along with us. So the news will be continued by Umar.
North, North Korea, what we know about its missile and nuclear program. Already in January, tests have been carried out on hypersonic as well as Southland intermediate range and long-range ballistic missile. Last September, hypersonic missile, a trial-based ballistic missile, and a long-range cruise missile were all tested, according to North Korea state media. In January, just before President Biden took office, North Korea North Korea unveiled a new submarine ballistic missile at military parade, carrying it the world's most powerful weapon. These weapons' actual capabilities remain unclear, as it is not to have been tested. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to expand his nuclear arsenal and military potential, and the country has managed to make advances despite being subject to economic sanctions. A missile that can reach the U.S. in North Korea test several missiles. They are saying with seem to be a great advance in its military technology. The House of Tariff is thus to be able to reach as far as for 500 kilometers to a thousand miles, putting U.S. military bases on the Pacific island of Guam will within straight distance. This work has given Pagan its first truly international ballistic missile, capable of killing the rock. Eventually, the Hudson has been West's space peaking at an estimated altitude of 5,000 kilometers, 10 times higher than the International Space Station. If read on a more conventional, flatter trajectory, the missile could have a maximum range of some 13 kilometers, putting out of the continental U.S. in range. In October, North Korea unveiled its new ballistic missile. It has not yet been or tested like the home 15 solid-state liquid fueled missile, but with a greater length and diameter. It could possibly carry multiple warheads. It is believed to be able able to deliver nuclear weapons to anywhere in the U.S. and it says super missiles. Announced when it was put on shore in 2020. In January 2020 and 21, North Korea unified honor missile, a new type of submarine launching ballistic missile is directed to be the world's most powerful weapon. The unifying of the new missile appeared to be a message to the Biden administration of the not growing military power side action. In March 2021, it came on a lot of it came a new tactical with Project Terror, which is said was able to carry a payload of 2 5 tons, so capable of in theory of carrying a nuclear warhead. The weapon has not been formally announced at the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies reiterates that it enabled to be an improved variant of a presidency test missile, the K-in-23. When missile does not Korea have especially upper range in kilometer, one 5,000 kilometer, and Puguskong mean 1,000 kilometer. Pukul Song mean 200 kilometer. Musudan 400 kilometer. Husong mean 12 for 5,000 kilometer. Huosong mean 14, 10, and for 10 for 1,000 kilometer. Husong 15, 3, 13 kilometer. And some experts have suggested that the missile could have featured emitting into more acid and making it harder to predict. The last September of long-range cruise missile was not transform defense system as these missiles don't have to follow a strict trajectory and can be programmed to avoid detection. State media said if could travel up to 5,000 kilometers and 9,030 miles, put much of Japan with range although is not clear as yet how is allowed and whether it could carry a nuclear power. Unit-based missile to UN security can cancel the North Korea from testing current missiles. The hypersonic missile test last September can travel at necessary speeds and after radar detection for longer than ballistic missiles. It's believed that North Korea may also be able to transport and store it fully full, allowing for quicker launch time. Demonstrator bombs. It was on 3 September that North Korea condemned by far its largest nuclear test, the it as a public inside. Estimates of the device export power or yet range from 1,000 until 3,700 kilograms. A yield of 1,000 kilograms would make the test system more powerful than the bomb the process and developed on Hiroshima in China, North Korea, Pyongyang, Korea by and Luzon, Kim Jong. North Korea claimed the test was its first thermal weapon, the most potent form of nuclear explosions where an automatic detonation is caused by a secondary fusion process to produce a far bigger blast. In April, North Korea announced it will suspend further nuclear tests because its capabilities had been verified. North Korea also promised to display the publicly reset in May. Blow up some of the tunnels in the presence of foreign journalists but with to international action. Uh, as as the as the got underway, President Kim Jong-un and President Trump acknowledged the share. However, the talks with the U.S. will inclusive. The UN Automatic Agency reported in 2021 that on the base of satellite imaging, it about North Korea had raised the Yongbyon reactor that be its main source of weapon grade plutonium. The International Atomic Energy Agency (EIAI) said the nuclear program was going full steam ahead, with work on plutonium separation, uranium enrichment, and other additives. Millions of soldiers. North Korea has one of the largest standing armies in the world with more than a million army personnel and estimated reserve of some 6,000. Most of its equipment is old and obsolete, but its conventional force could still inflict massive damage on South Korea in the event of war. North Korea also has armed tens of thousands of special force troops which could be expected to infiltrate the South in the event of any conflict. The military base featured that come from thousands of North Korean artillery, pieces and rocket launchers developed along the border, cutting South Korea, including the capital Seoul, which is a distance of less than 60 kilometers, will within range. In South Korean government assessment estimated that North Korea could have between 5,000 and 500 tons of cancer weapon technology on of the livestock is in the world. And there also been concerned that North Korea could have a bigger weapon program. And the news data from Bagas.
Okay, we continue the news. North Korea missile test biggest launch since 2017. North Korea has conducted what is thought to be its biggest missile launch since 2017. Instead, the ballistic missile was intermediate range, crossing 12. Japan and South Korea set at reach a maximum altitude of 2000 km before coming down in the Sea of Japan or East Sea. Both countries have recommenced launch the seventh test this month. The UN prohibited North Korea from ballistic and nuclear weapon tests and has imposed strict sanctions, but the East Asian state regularly defies the ban, and leader Kim Jong-un has vowed to bolster his country's defense. North Korean state news agency KCNA said the missile has been launched to verify its accuracy. The scheme was reportedly not present. It was launched. It was launched to the higher angle firing system from the northwestern area to the East Sea of Korea in consideration of the security of the neighboring countries. The agency said. So this website NK News tweet their first picture from the launch. Breaking first picture of North Korea Hwasong 12 IRBM launch from Jan 30. The BBC is not responsible for the content excellence site. The original tweet on Twitter. Meanwhile, a senior United States official called on North Korea to join direct talks about its nuclear and missile program with no precondition. Reuters reported. We believe it is completely appropriate and completely correct to start having some serious discussion, the official said. The US earlier called on North Korea to refrain from further destabilizing. Experts suggest multiple reasons lie behind the speed of launch, including political signaling of strength to global and regional power, a desire by Kim Jong-un to pressure the US back into long-stalled nuclear talk, and also the practical need to test out new engineering and military command system. The timing is also seen as significant, coming just before the Winter Olympics in China and ahead of the South Korean presidential election in March. And the tests have also served as the faltering North Korea economy struggle under US-led sanctions, economic difficulties, and decades of mismanagement. North Korea missile test. What does Kim Jong-un want? North Korea to focus on economic 2022. South Korea report that the launch took place at 7 o'clock local time on Sunday of North Korea of East Coast. Japanese and South Korean officials estimate the missile reached an altitude of 2,000 km, 1,240 miles, and flew for 30 minutes to a distance of 800 km or 500 miles. January was already one of the busiest months on the record for North Korea's missile program, with several short-range missiles fired into the sea. South Korea President Moon Jae-in said the latest flurry of tests was reminiscent of the heightened tension in 2017, when North Korea conducted several nuclear tests and launched in largest missiles, including some that flew over Japan. Announced motor testing nuclear weapon or 8 long-range intercontinental ballistic missile (HBM). But the North Korea leader said in 2019 he was no longer bound by moratorium. The US imposed more sanctions of the North Korea area in January in response to previous missile launch. Negotiations between the two countries have stalled. Dr. Daniel Pinkston, a lecturer in natural relationship, told the BBC there were four main reasons why North Korea tests missiles for engineering purposes to test new systems, for military access, for political signaling to different audiences, and as an awareness for foreign buyers. North Korea may be signaling to big powers such as China, the US, and the UN Security Council, but also regional forces and also the Korean Peninsula, he said. There is a South Korean presidential election coming up in just over a month, so this is consistent with their past behavior to try and intimidate South Korea, and the incoming president said that Dr. Pinkston from Troy University and who live in South Korea, and then domestic audience inside North Korea, which I think a lot of people often understand. For that audience inside North Korea is a way of signaling strength of resolve and the power of the leadership, according to other analysts. The missile tested earlier in the month showed North Korea was developing technology that can defeat the costly and complex missile defense system that America and Japan have been deploying across the region. Former South Korean Naval Commander Professor Kim Dong Yup said they want to have a deterrent system that is like a scorpion tail. North Korea's main purpose is not to attack but to defend themselves, said Professor Kim, adding North Korea's purpose is not attack to but defend themselves, adding the country is trying to secure their separate deterrent capability. Meanwhile, UK Young research fellow at Center for Policy and National Security told Reuters that Kim seemed to be ramping up tests in the bid to pressure both Washington and Beijing over sanctions just ahead of the Olympics. China and North Korea, an economic ally, is likely to be irritated by the launch coming not only before the Olympic but also just before Lunar New Year celebration, according to BBC Asia analyst Celia Hatton. And that's all from me and Bewok for the news. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Udah berapa menit? Berapa menit? Gue pertama, gue kedua baca artikel. Tapi gue artikel yang kedua, bacanya gue duluan.
Tapi kan itu ada di Is Russia preparing to invade Ukraine and other questions? Are Russian forces getting ready for war in Ukraine, or President Joe Biden is currently expanding some of military move? Russia wants the West to promise that Ukraine will not join its non-defense alliance. And out the two sides are debating that is not going to happen. What happened next called jeopardize Europeans and security structures. Why is Russia threatening Ukraine? Russia is planning any invasion, but it has said Ukraine territory before and it has an estimate. Deployed near its borders, Russia has harassed Ukraine moves toward Europa, Eastern and NATO in particular. Ukraine share borders with both the EU and Russia, but as a former Soviet republic, it has deep social and cultural ties with Russia, and Russia is usually squandered. When Ukraine deposited the Russian resident in Italy, Russia annexed Ukraine, Southern Peninsula, and made parts into capitalized threats of ethnic Ukraine. The rebels have fought the Ukrainian military ever since in a conflict that has spanned more than. How big is the risk of invasion? Russia said it has no plans to attack Ukraine and armed forces severely. James Evans, the next report of our impending invasion is away. Both tensions are high and President Vladimir Putin has threatened about regularity modality technical mention. Even the scale was aggressive upon continuous. Saying his goes that Russia will move in the USS the smell of Russian but to both its force near Ukraine on very short notice. The US says Russia has offered no export for the troops first cost to Ukraine and Russian troops and tanks have headed to Belarus for export. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister compared the current situation to the Cuban Missile case. When the US and Soviet Union come across Ukraine country, West intelligence against Russian in course of innovation could happen sometime in Europe. What does Russia want from NATO? Russia has spoken of a moment of truth. It restrains its relationship with NATO. For US is absolutely mandatory to ensure Ukraine ever becomes a member of NATO, said Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei. Moscow against NATO countries are hoping carried with Western and the US are stoking tension. President Putin has combat Russia has now have to threatened to do great things will just stand in by. In reality, Russia was not to return to its pay border. India's tomorrow effort, action and to NATO military activity and SNL. What will make command units being put out of front and the ability? Republic of Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania. And Mr. Level in countries Sur and Panama. What does Russia want with Ukraine? Russia says Kremlin in 2014 arguing it had a historic claim to it Ukraine was part of the Soviet Union. But collapsed in December 1991 and Mr. Putin said it was the situation of Russia. A clue to President Putin is seen on Ukraine came in a legitimate peace last year when he called Russian and Ukraine on nation. He revealed Ukraine current leaders running in Hunter's project. Russia has also become threat that 2015 space there for action Ukraine is far from being full. There are still no elements for independently modern elected in the Spanish Russian action that it as a part of the Linux project. Russian action is stalled. President Vladimir Putin has spoken several times to Mr. Biden and his level task continue. But Russians also have felt that recently of the candidates are ready to add that. The question is how far Russia will go. President Biden has threatened that a full-scale invasion was the disaster for Russia. But it was a minor invasion. He said controversy that the West and are having to fight about that technique. That would host such and move across the border conflicts are running innovation but part of Russia has after weapons including cyber attack and primitive techniques. The Pentagon has asked Russia of takes a so-called strike operation without operatives ready to carry out acts of strike against Russia. They claimed to provide a break for international Russian happy. However, if Russia only and is not forced NATO away from its bank, there are no signs as if it's security. NATO 30 members have connected flag and attempt to keep their hand for that footer. We will not allow anyone to sabotage NATO opener policy said U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Randy Sherman. Ukraine is looking for a clear timeline to join and NATO said Russia has no veto right to enter in the process. And non-NATO members Sweden and Finland have also rejected Russian attempt to stop the beefing up their team allies. We will not let go of our armed front person. Signed Finland and Michigan. How far will the wish go for Ukraine? The US has made clear it has no plan to send combat troops to Ukraine. Instead, will be committed to helping the country defeat its sovereignty. The Pentagon has put 8,500 combat-ready troops on arm, which could be deployed to NATO countries in Eastern Europe at short notice. The main troops in the West armory appears to be sons and military aid in the form of arms and weapons. President Bill has said Russia leader will initially not his efforts said if Ukraine is attacked so what will be evil? The ultimate economic hit would be the scattered Russian banking system from the international finance system. That has always been seen famous as our lesson. And there is could really impact the US and European economies. President Biden has also warned he would consider personal sanctions on Vladimir Putin if Russia invades Ukraine. Another case that is not perfect the opening of Russia Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline and Germany, and effort for that is currently being led by German and Belgium. Is the West unit in its resolution? The US President has said there is total unity with European leaders of Ukraine, but there are divisions between America and Europe. European leaders are adamant that Russia cannot just dash on the footer with the US. France has ever proposed that Europe work together with NATO and then connect their own Europe with Russia. It's not just the US and Russia. If you want to talk about security in Europe, Europe have to be at the table and the agenda is just as Russia has what the table. Uh, and the news to Bagas.
Okay, I'll continue the news. Is Russia prepared to invade Ukraine? And another question. Are Russian forces getting ready for war in Ukraine? US President Joe Biden is certainly expecting some kind of military move. Russia wants the West to promise that Ukraine will not join its NATO defensive alliance, and although the two sides are negotiating, that is not going to happen. What happens next could jeopardize Europe's entire security structure. Why is Russia threatening Ukraine? Russia denied Russia denied its planning any invasion, but it has seized Ukrainian territory before, and it has estimated 100,000 troops deployed near its border. Russia has long resisted Ukraine's move toward European institutions and NATO in particular. Ukraine shares border with both the EU and Russia, but as former Soviet republic, it has deep social and cultural ties with Russia, and Russian is widely spoken there. When Ukrainians deposed their pro-Russian president in early 2014, Russia annexed Ukraine's southern Crimean Peninsula and backed separatists who captured swaths of eastern Ukraine. The rebels have fought the Ukrainian military ever since in a conflict that has claimed more than 14,000 lives. How big is the risk of invasion? Russia says it has no plan to attack Ukraine, and an armored force chief Valery Gerasimov even denounced a report of imminent invasion as a lie. But tensions are high, and President Vladimir Putin has threatened appreciate reiterative military technical measures if what he calls the West's aggressive approach continue. NATO Secretary General warns the risk of conflict is real. President Biden said his guess is that Russia will move in. The US said it knows of Russian plan to boost its force near Ukraine on very short notice. The US said Russia has offered no explanation for the troops post close to Ukraine, and Russian troops and tanks have headed to Belarus of exercise. Russia Deputy Foreign Minister compared the current situation to the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, when the US and Soviet Union come close to nuclear conflict. Western intelligence suggests a Russian incursion or invasion could happen sometime in early 2022, where Russian troops are positioned, permanent station, and newly arrived unit number unconfirmed. Troops is 6,000 in the Belarus, Russia, and the other of Russian daerah. What does Russia want from NATO? Russia has spoken of a moment of truth in recasting in relationship with NATO. For us, it's absolutely mandatory to ensure Ukraine never ever become a member of NATO, said Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Prigov. Moscow accused NATO countries of pumpkin Ukraine with weapon and the US of stoking tension. President Putin has complained Russia has nowhere further to retreat to. Do they think we'll just sit idle by? In reality, Russia wants to NATO to return to its pre-1997 border and demands no more eastward expansion and unend NATO military activity in Eastern Europe that would mean combat units being pulled off of Poland and Baltic Republic as of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and no missiles deployed in countries such as Poland and Romania. NATO expansion since 1997. Joined NATO before 1999. Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. Russia has also treaty with the US barring nuclear weapons from being deployed beyond their territory. Ukraine crisis. Risks remain as Russia and West talk. Is Europe a safer place after a week of diplomacy that has crisscrossed the continent? The short answer is probably no. From Martin talk in Geneva between the US and Russia to the first meeting of the NATO-Russia Council in more than two years, to a session of the Organization for Cooperation and Security in Europe in Vienna, grievances have been aired and red line draws accusation level. When the Sherman Washington veteran negotiators spoke of a better understanding of each other and each other parties and concern after almost 8 hours of talk with Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov on Monday. For his part, Mr. Ryabkov said the Americans had considered our concern seriously. When the focus shifted to NATO, the alliance Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg spoke of a general willingness and support of the idea of dialogue from his Russian interlocutors. At time when 100,000 Russian troops maintained their menacing presence on Ukraine, northern and eastern border, the coming and going of specific unit of and piece of equipment immediately unless for goods to Kremlin to intention the fact that so much time has been spent talking this week is positive. Where are where are the talks going? It seems too early to talk about the process. Mr. Solberg said the Russians were not yet ready to agree a schedule of further meetings. Mr. Kov offered to pour cold water on idea of more dialogue. I do not see a reason to sit down in the coming days, he told Russian TV. Together again and start the same discussion. Sergei Ryabkov said the main problem is the US and its NATO allies are not prepared under any guise for any reason, which we have discussed and analyzed for over and over to meet our key demands to NATO. The reality is that no one has really agreed what these talks are about for the West. It's all about preventing a Russian military incursion into Ukraine. For Russia, it seems to be about stopping NATO in its strike, preventing Ukraine from ever joining, and beyond that, rolling back alliance presence and activity on the territory of the old Soviet Empire. Or according to Kremlin, when Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko spoke to journalists after Wednesday meeting at NATO, he launched in a protected litany grievance about the Western Alliance behalf since the end of the Cold War. He sought to portray NATO as an aggressive presence in Europe, with Russia as the continent's only real peacekeeper. If NATO tries to contain Russia, he warned there will be a policy of a counter-containment. If there is deterrence, there will be counter-deterrence. NATO expansion since Russia annexed Crimea in 2014. In the Kremlin North feed, Russia threatened, not threatening, Russian troops are minding their own business on Ukraine border, while NATO more presence in country bordering Russia is unacceptable. It had spinning stuff at times, but stems for legally deep-seated recently and the collapse of Russia's sphere of influence and the end of the Cold War and what Moscow sees as the speed with which NATO took advantage, talking at the cross purpose. The West response so far, a part of the threat massive consequence South Russia invade Ukraine is over regular risk reduction measures, including the placement of missiles in Europe and greater transparency of the size and scoping of military. Okay, the news I will continue by Umar.
The news is North Korea. What we know about its missile and nuclear program. Already in January, tests have been carried out on hypersonic as well as short range, intermediate range, and long range based missile. Last September, a hypersonic missile, a train-based basic missile, and a long-time cruise missile were all tested, according to North Korean state media. In January 2021, just before President Biden took office, North Korea unveiled a new summer launch-based missile at a military parade, carrying in the world's most powerful weapon. This weapon actually capability remains unclear as it is not known to have been tested. North Korea leader Kim Jong-un has pledged to expand his nuclear arsenal and military potential, and the country has met to make access that being subject to economic sanctions. Missiles that can reach the U.S. In 2017, North Korea tested several missiles demonstrating what seemed to be rapid advance in its military technology. The Hissène-20 veterans was said to be able to reach as far as 500 kilometers to 888,000 miles, putting U.S. military based on the Pacific region of whom will demonstrate distance. What does Kim Jong-un want? Later, that Harvard Team demonstrated even greater potential with a range of 8 kilometers. Thompson suggested it could drive as far as 10 kilometers if on a maximum altitude. The world has given Pyongyang its fair through interaction with missiles capable of reaching New York. Eventually, the history faced in the space fishing at an estimated altitude of 4,000 kilometers, 10 times higher than the International Space Station. Effect on a more conventional flight trajectory, the missile could have a maximum range of some 13 kilometers, putting all of the continental U.S. in range. In October 2020, North Korea unified its new basic mission. It has not yet been named or tested the household factory. It is a two-stand liquid fuel missile but with a greater length and diameter. Its core possibility can multiply what it is believed to be able to deliver a nuclear warhead to any heart in the U.S. and it self-suppressed even self energy when it was put on sale in 2020. In January 2021, North Korea unified other missile and TB, a type of submarine ballistic missile with is said to be the world for weapon. The unifying of the missile appeared to be a message to Biden administration of the North growing military power side action. In March 2021, it called out a lot of what is called a new type tactical wheat program. With itself was able to carry payload of 2 5 tons, so capable of, in theory, of carrying a nuclear weapon. The weapon has not been formally identified at the James Martin Center for Northwest Studies to Preston that it about to be an evaluation of the test missile the KN-23. Nodong 5,000 kilometers, Puk Guk Song 9,000 kilometers, Puk Gosong 2,000 kilometers, Musudat 4 kilometers, Husong 12 for 5,000 kilometers, Husong 40 10,000 for 10,000 kilometers, Husong 15 3,000 kilometers. The test last September of a long-range cruise missile called Perseid more, therefore defense system, as their missile don't have to follow a straight trajectory and can be programmed to avoid detection. Stan media said it could travel up to 1,000 kilometers and 9,030 miles footboard or Japan way. Although it's not clear as yet how is that and whether it's a car and nuclear power. Unlike a Western missile, Tesla's September can travel at much slower speed and afford radar detection for longer than base missile. It's weird that North Korea may also be able to transport and store its fully food for allowing for quicker launch time. There were bombs. It was on 3 September 2017 that North Korea caused by force its first nuclear test today as its previous state. Estimates of the defense explosive power are yet from 1,000 3,017 kilotons, a yield of 1,000 kilotons would make the test system powerful than the bomb that on Hiroshima in 1945. China, North Korea, Pyongyang, Pyongyang, and Chongqing, and Pyongyang. North Korea this days was if thermal weapon, the most potent form of nuclear action, where an automatic detonation is caused by a second fusion process to cause bigger fires. In April 2018, North Korea announced its world plans for the nuclear space because its capabilities have been inflated. South Korea also promised to smash the Punggye precise in May 2018 based on some of turnout in the presence of foreign journalists but with no international action. As a dialogue underway between Kim Jong-un and President Trump after that year. Then, however, the talks with us will end. The UN Automatic Agency development in 2021 that on the basis of satellite imaging. It apparent North Korea has tested the Yongbyon reactor, the two-week milestone of Uyghur autonomy. The International Atomic Energy and Safety Agency (EIA) said that the nuclear program must go full steam ahead to report on plutonium suppression, uranium, and other activities. Millions of soldiers. North Korea has asked the rank-standing armies in the war to ignore death on million army personnel and estimated ratio of some 6,000. Much of its equipment is old and outsourced, but its computer force could still inflict massive damage on South Korea in the event of war. North Korea also has on tens of thousands of space force troops which will be able to infiltrate the South in the event of any conflict. And South the military base 2021 IISS further the come from thousands of Korean artillery and rocket launchers deployed along the border. putting South Korea, including the capital Seoul, which is a distance of less than 60 kilometers, will with the range. In 2012, a certain government assessment and estimated that North Korea could have between 5,000 and 500 tons of chemical fatality on of the last stops in the world. And there also been contest that North Korea could have a bigger Wilson project. And a news bagas.
Okay, we'll continue the news. North Korea was ignored what its missile and nuclear program. North Korea has conducted more missile tests and advanced its weapons program. It says it's necessary to defend itself against a possible U.S. invasion. Already in January, tests have been carried out on hypersonic as well as short-range, intermediate range, and long-range ballistic missiles. In September, a hypersonic missile, a train-based ballistic missile, and a long-range cruise missile were all tested. According to North Korean state media in January 2021, just before President Biden took office, North Korea unveiled a new submarine-launched ballistic missile at a military parade, calling it the world's most powerful weapon. This weapon's actual capability remains unclear, as it is not known to have been tested. North Korea leader Kim Jong has pledged to expand his nuclear arsenal and military potential, and the country has managed to make advances despite being subject to economic sanctions. Missiles that can reach the US. In 2017, North Korea tested several missiles demonstrating what seemed to be rapid advance in its military technology. The Hwasong 12 was thought to be able to reach as far as 4,500 kilometers or 2,800 miles, putting US military base on the Pacific island of Guam within striking distance. What does Kim Jong want? Later, the Hwasong 14 demonstrated even greater potential with a range of 8,000 kilometers, although some studies suggest that it could travel as far as 10,000 kilometers if fired on a maximum trajectory. This would have given Pyongyang its first truly intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching New York. Eventually, Hwasong 15 was tested peaking at an estimated altitude of 4,000 kilometers, 10 times higher than the International Space Station. If fired on a more conventional flatter trajectory, the missile could have a maximum range of some 13,000 kilometers, putting all of the continent as US in a range. In October 2020, North Korea unveiled its new ballistic missile. It has not yet been named or tested. Like the Hwasong 15, it is a two-stage liquid-fueled missile, but with a greater length and diameter. It could possibly carry multiple warheads. It is believed to be able to deliver a nuclear warhead to anywhere in the US, and its size surprised even decent analysts when it was put on show 2020. In January 2021, North Korea unveiled another missile, a new type of submarine-launched ballistic missile, which it declared to be the world's most powerful weapon. The unveiling of the new missile appeared to be a message to the Biden administration of the North growing military prowess, say experts. In March 2021, it carried out a launch of what it called new type tactical boy projectile. which it said was able to carry a payload of 2,5 tons, so capable of, in the theory, of carrying a nuclear warhead. The weapon has not been identified, at least at the James Martin Center of the Non-Proliferation Study told Reuters that it happened to be an improved variant of previous tested missile, the KN, the KN-23. What missile does North Korea have? Estimate upper range in kilometers. Tested operational, not shorter range missile not shown. Some experts have suggested that the missile could have either enabling it to maneuver more easily and making it harder to detect. The test last September of a long-range cruise missile could pose yet more challenge for defense system, as the missile don't have to follow a straight trajectory and can be programmed to evade detection. State media said it could travel up to 1,005 kilometer, 1,005 1,500 kilometer or 930 miles, putting much of the Japan within range, although it not clear as yet how it could and whether it could carry a nuclear payload. Unlike ballistic missile, current UN Security Council sanctions do not prohibit North Korea from testing cruise missile. The, the hypersonic missile tested last September can travel at much faster speed and avoid radar detection for longer than ballistic missile. It believed that North Korea may also be able to transport and store its fuel, allowing for quicker launch times. Thermonuclear bombs. It was on 3 September 2017 that North Korea conducted by far its largest nuclear test to date at test site. Estimate of device explosive power or yield range from 100 until 370 kilotons. A yield of a yield of 100 kilotons would make the test 6 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima in 1945. North Korea claimed this test was its first thermonuclear weapon, the most potent of nuclear explosion, where an atomic detonation is boosted by a secondary fusion process to produce a far bigger blast. In April, North Korea announced it would suspend for the nuclear test because its capability had been verified. North Korea also promised to dismantle the Pyongyang site, and May 2018 blew up some of the tunnel in the presence of foreign journalists, but with no international expert. As dialogue got underway between Kim Jong-un and President Trump administration that year, Pyongyang also said that it would destroy all its nuclear material enriched facility. However, the talks with the US were inconclusive. The UN Atomic Agency reported in 2021 that on the basis of satellite imagery and effort, North Korea had restarted the Yongbyon reactor, thought to be its main source of weapon-grade plutonium. In the International Atomic Energy Agency (IAEA) said that the nuclear program was going full steam ahead, with work on plutonium separation, uranium enrichment, and other activity. Millions of soldiers. North Korea has one of the largest standing armies in the world, with more than 1 million army personnel and estimated reserve of some 900,000. Much of equipment is al-Adla, but its conventional force could still inflict massive damage on South Korea in event of the war. North Korea also has around tens of thousands of special force troops which could be unexpected to infiltrate the South in the event of any conflict. In the military balance, a further retreat comes for thousand North Korea artillery and rocket launch deployed along the border, putting South Korea, including the capital Seoul, which is distance of less than 60 kilometers, well within range. In 2012, a South Korean government assessment estimated that North Korea could have between 2,500 and 5,000 tons of chemical weapons, potentially one of the largest stockpiles in the world. And there also been concern that North Korea could have a biological weapon program, although very little is known about it and how far advanced it might be. So that is for me.
And me.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Udah lebih kok.
Berapa jam?
35.